late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. Cars hummed in the distance, dogs barked behind fences, and the sound of cicadas buzzed faintly in the warm air. For Marcus, a 15-year-old with a backpack slung over one shoulder and earbuds in, it was just another walk home from school. His path was familiar, the cracked sidewalks and overgrown hedges leading him back to the house where he lived with his mother. Marcus was humming along to a song when he noticed a dark sedan parked halfway down the block. Its engine idled low, a steady rumble that didn't match the stillness of the street. He thought little of it at first. Cars parked all the time. But when the sedan crept forward slowly, rolling almost in time with his steps, the back of his neck prickled. He tried to shake it off. Maybe someone was lost. Maybe they were looking for an address. But then the car pulled closer, coming to a stop just a few feet ahead of him. Two men stepped out, both wearing police uniforms with badges that glinted faintly in the sunlight. Their belts carried holsters, though Marcus couldn't tell if the guns were real. "Hey, kid," one of them called, his voice sharp, commanding. "Hold up a second." Marcus paused, tugging one earbud free. "Me?" "Yeah, you," the taller man said. He was broad-shouldered, with a jaw tight as stone. "We need to ask you a few questions." Marcus froze, his pulse quickening. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just walking home. But he'd seen enough videos, heard enough stories, to know that being innocent didn't always protect you. "What's wrong?" he asked cautiously. The second man stepped closer, his eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe. "You match the description of a suspect we're looking for. Young male, dark hoodie, carrying a backpack. We'll need you to come with us." Marcus blinked, disbelief washing over him. He wore his school hoodie, the one with his high school's logo. His backpack had a keychain dangling from the zipper, the mascot of his basketball team. Everything about him screamed student, not suspect. "There must be a mistake," Marcus stammered. "I'm just trying to get home." The taller man smirked faintly, as though he'd heard that excuse 1,000 times before. "They all say that. Just cooperate, and this will go smooth." Marcus's chest tightened. Something felt off. The way they spoke didn't sound like the officers he'd heard before. Their tone wasn't firm professionalism. It was casual, almost sloppy. And their badges, they didn't look quite right. The numbers were blurred, the metal dull, like replicas bought from a costume shop. Marcus took a step back. "Can I see your IDs? Or your names?" The second man's eyes narrowed. "Don't get smart, boy. We said come with us." He reached out as if to grab Marcus's arm. Marcus jerked away, his heart pounding so loud he could barely hear himself think. Fear surged hot in his veins, but beneath it was something else. Suspicion. These weren't real cops. He was sure of it now. He opened his mouth to shout, to call for help, but the taller man cut him off with a low growl. "Don't. You don't want to make this harder." Marcus's legs tensed, ready to run, but he knew better than to sprint blindly. Running could make things worse, real or fake, uniforms or not. He tried to steady his breathing, tried to think. His mom always told him, "Don't panic. Observe. Find the details." His mom, Detective Naomi Carter, had drilled it into him more times than he could count. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, her son, cornered by men pretending to wear the same authority she dedicated her life to upholding. "I just live right there," Marcus said, nodding toward a row of houses up the block. "My mom's waiting for me." The taller man laughed, a short, mocking sound. "Nice try. We'll explain it to your mom once we're done with you." They moved in closer, flanking him on either side. Marcus's breath caught. His palms went slick with sweat. His body screamed at him to run, but he forced himself to stay still, just long enough to look around. A few houses had curtains fluttering in the windows. A man watered his lawn across the street. People were there. Witnesses. If he shouted loud enough, someone might come. But before Marcus could act, the sound of footsteps echoed from up the block. Firm, deliberate, unhurried. He turned and felt a flood of relief, so strong it nearly buckled his knees. It was his mother. Naomi Carter walked quickly toward them, her work bag slung across her shoulder, her badge glinting openly on her belt. She had been heading home after a shift, taking the same route Marcus had. Her eyes swept over the scene in an instant, sharp and unflinching. She saw her son pressed between two so-called officers, their stances predatory, their hands too ready. Her expression hardened like steel. "Marcus," she called, her voice steady, calm, but edged with authority. "Step away from them. Now." The two men stiffened. The taller one scowled. "Ma'am, we're conducting an investigation. Stay back." Naomi didn't slow. "You're not conducting anything." She let her words cut through the air like a blade. "Show me your IDs." "Now." The shorter man faltered, his hand hovering near his belt. The taller one sneered. "Lady, this doesn't concern you." Naomi stopped just a few feet away, her presence commanding the entire street. She pulled her badge from her belt and held it up, her voice ringing with force. "Detective Naomi Carter, 15th Precinct. And that's my son you're trying to take." Marcus's heart surged with pride and terror all at once. His mom, unshaken, facing down the two men with fire in her eyes. The taller man blinked, his bravado faltering for just a split second. The shorter one muttered, "She's a cop?" under his breath. Naomi's eyes narrowed, every detail of their uniforms catalogued in her mind. The frayed stitching, the wrong placement of the patches, the cheap knockoff badges. She didn't need more proof. She already knew. Her voice dropped, low and lethal. "Take your hands off my son, or I swear you won't walk away from this street." The taller man shifted uncomfortably, but his pride pushed back. "You don't scare us." Naomi smirked coldly. "Then you really don't know who you're dealing with." The street had grown quieter, neighbors sensing something was wrong. Curtains moved. Phones were lifted. Eyes were on them now. Marcus swallowed hard, watching the tension build like a storm ready to break. He wanted to run to his mother, but he knew she needed him to stay steady, to hold the line until the moment broke. For the first time, the fake cops looked uncertain. And Naomi Carter, detective, mother, protector, was just getting started. The street felt like it had frozen in place. Every sound, the cicadas, the distant hum of a car, the faint splash of water from a sprinkler, seemed to fade until all that remained was a tense standoff between Naomi Carter, her son, and the two imposters standing in stolen authority. Naomi didn't blink. She had dealt with hardened criminals, cornered liars, even stood face to face with armed suspects. But nothing compared to seeing her child under threat. That sharpened her instincts in a way no academy ever could. The taller man's jaw worked, muscles twitching as he tried to size her up. He puffed his chest like a predator unwilling to give ground. "Detective or not, we got orders. Kid matches the description. We're taking him in." Naomi tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Her voice came out calm, measured, but cutting with precision. "Oh, really? Then state the case number. Tell me the call sign from dispatch. Quote me the probable cause for detaining a minor in broad daylight without backup, without paperwork, and without so much as a functioning radio. Go ahead. I'll wait." The second man shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting toward the neighbors who had begun to gather. Across the street, the man with the garden hose lowered it, staring openly now. Curtains fluttered as faces peeked out, some with phones raised discreetly to record. The taller imposter didn't answer. He simply growled, "Don't test us." Naomi's smile was razor-thin, humorless. "I already did, and you failed." Marcus, frozen a few feet away, clung to her every word. He could feel the electricity in the air, the storm brewing with each passing second. His legs shook, but hearing his mother so sure, so unyielding, gave him an anchor. "Mom," he whispered, almost afraid to break the moment. Naomi shot him a quick glance, her eyes softening just for him. "Stay behind me, Marcus." Her tone left no room for debate. The impostors looked at each other, a flicker of doubt passing between them. They had expected an easy grab, a frightened kid with no backup. They hadn't anticipated his mother, and they certainly hadn't anticipated that she'd be law enforcement herself. Still, pride was a dangerous thing. The taller man stepped forward, his hand twitching near the fake holster at his belt. Lady, you're interfering. Step aside, or what? Naomi cut in, her voice like a whip. You'll assault a detective in front of witnesses? Try to drag a child into your car while the whole block watches? Do it. I want you to. Her words sliced through the air, daring them. The neighbors murmured louder now. Phones were openly raised, red recording lights glowing. The weight of the neighborhood pressed down on the imposters, exposing their false power under the blazing sun. The shorter man's voice cracked slightly. We don't need to make this a scene. Naomi barked a short, sharp laugh. You made a scene the second you put your hands on my son. Marcus's throat felt tight. He wanted to scream, to cry, to run, but he stayed rooted. His mother's presence held him steady like an unbreakable wall. The taller imposter glanced at the car, then at his partner. The massive controls slipped, revealing unease beneath. He muttered under his breath, low enough for only Naomi to hear. You don't know who we work for. Naomi leaned in slightly, her voice dropping into steel. And you don't know who I am when someone threatens my child. A ripple of fear crossed a man's face. Just for a moment, he straightened, trying to cover it with bravado. This isn't over. Naomi tilted her chin, eyes locked on his. Oh, it's just beginning. The shorter imposter tugged his partner's arm, whispering urgently. They both glanced at the growing cluster of neighbors. Some people had stepped onto their porches, muttering to one another, others pointing phones like shields. The whole street was awake now, bearing witness. Marcus swallowed hard, his voice small but brave. Mom, are they going to leave? Naomi didn't take her eyes off the imposters. They're going to answer questions. Right here. Right now. She pulled out her phone with deliberate calm, dialing with a speed that came from muscle memory. Holding it to her ear, she spoke loud enough for the imposters to hear every word. This is Detective Naomi Carter, badge number 5472. I need a patrol unit at my location immediately. Possible impersonation of officers. Attempted abduction of a minor. Suspects in fake uniforms. Badges likely counterfeit. Yes, I have them contained. Yes, witnesses present. The imposters stiffened. Their entire scam was unraveling faster than they could patch it together. The taller one hissed, You'll regret this. Naomi didn't flinch. The only people regretting anything will be you. When real officers put cuffs on your wrists. The neighbors murmured louder, a chorus of whispers rising into outrage. Someone shouted, We got you on video. Another voice added, Leave that boy alone. The imposter's composure cracked further. The taller man clenched his fists, his breathing quick and uneven. The shorter one looked pale now, his bravado gone. Their car sat idling behind them, the black paint gleaming in the sun like a waiting escape route. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized the danger hadn't passed. These men were cornered animals, unpredictable and desperate men could still lash out. Naomi seemed to sense it too. Her stance shifted subtly, protective but ready. She placed herself fully between them and Marcus, her hand near the badge and holstered weapon at her hip. She wasn't just his mother now. She was a detective, trained, battle-ready, and unwilling to lose. For a heartbeat, the entire block held its breath. Would they run? Would they fight? Would the cavalry arrive in time? Marcus whispered again, barely audible, Mom. Naomi's hand tightened slightly on her phone, her voice calm but deadly serious. Stay behind me, son. Whatever happens next, you don't move. The imposters glanced at each other once more, and something ugly passed between them. This was an end clean, and Marcus knew, deep down, the real storm was just about to break. The longer the imposter stood in the open, the heavier the weight of the moment became. Sweat dripped down the taller man's temple, his jaw flexing as his eyes darted between the growing crowd and Naomi's unshaken stance. The shorter man whispered something urgent in his ear, and for the first time Marcus noticed the panic beginning to seep through their masks. Naomi's phone was still pressed to her ear. Yes, she said firmly, her voice level. 2 suspects. Caucasian male, mid-30s, 6'2", broad build. Second suspect, late 20s, 5'9", nervous demeanor, both dressed in falsified uniforms. They attempted to seize my son under false pretenses. She paused, her eyes never leaving the men. Backup needed immediately. Her words weren't just for dispatch, they were for everyone watching. Every syllable dug the trap deeper, locking the imposters into the spotlight they couldn't escape. The taller one suddenly barked, "Enough of this." His hand shot out, grabbing Marcus's arm with a roughness that sent fear spiking through him. "Marcus." Naomi's voice rang sharp, commanding. In an instant she stepped forward, her own hand flashing to her holster. She didn't draw, not yet, but the implication was clear. Her other arm pulled Marcus behind her with practiced ease, breaking the imposter's grip. The shorter man flinched, glancing at the weapon, his own hand twitching near his fake holster, but never committing. He knew what Naomi knew. If he pulled anything, even a toy, it would end badly. The taller man, however, was too far gone. Rage twisted his features as he leaned closer, his voice low and venomous. "You think you scare me because you've got a badge? That kid's coming with us." Naomi's eyes blazed. "You've already lost. Let go now or you'll leave in cuffs, or worse." The neighbors erupted, voices rising into a storm. "Leave him alone," someone yelled. "The cops are on the way," another shouted. Phones zoomed in closer, lenses capturing every second. The imposters weren't just outnumbered, they were cornered in the daylight, their lies unraveling in real time. The taller man's grip tightened on nothing but air now. As Naomi had forced Marcus back, his frustration boiled over. With a guttural growl, he shoved forward, chest to chest with Naomi. For a split second, Marcus thought she might fall, but his mother didn't budge. Her stance was solid, immovable, like she was carved from stone. "You just made your last mistake," she said, her voice quiet but carrying. The shorter imposter hissed, "We need to go now." His eyes flicked wildly between the crowd, the flashing phones, and Naomi's unyielding glare. He tugged at his partner's sleeve, desperation clawing at his tone. "She's not bluffing. Let's get out of here." But pride had poisoned the taller man's judgment. He sneered, inches from Naomi's face. "You think you've won because you've got an audience? They won't save you." Naomi finally shifted, her hand resting openly on the grip of her sidearm. "No," she said evenly, "but I will." That was the breaking point. The shorter imposter yanked hard on his partner's arm. "We're done. We're done," he snapped. His fear had cracked through, drowning out bravado. "We can't. There are too many eyes." For the first time, the taller man faltered, his gaze sweeping across the block. Every neighbor was watching. Every phone was recording. The sound of distant sirens began to pierce the air, faint but undeniable, growing closer with every second. Marcus's chest rose and fell rapidly, his eyes darting between his mother and the man. He could hear the sirens too, and for the first time hope bloomed. Naomi's expression didn't soften. She knew corner men were dangerous. She shifted her stance slightly protective, keeping Marcus close behind her. "Step back. Hands where I can see them." The shorter imposter's hands shot up almost instinctively. His voice trembled. We didn't mean anything. Just a misunderstanding." Naomi's laugh was cold, without humor. "A misunderstanding? You dress in fake uniforms, try to abduct a child, and threaten detective. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a felony." The taller man cursed under his breath, but even he knew the game was collapsing. The sirens grew louder, echoing off the houses now. Red and blue lights flickered faintly at the end of the block. "Hands up." Naomi barked again. "Now." For a long second, neither moved. The taller man's pride war with his fear, his body tensed like a coiled spring. The shorter one was already breaking, his arms trembling in the air, eyes wide. The sound of police cruisers rushing closer left no room for escape. Finally, with a guttural growl, the taller imposter shoved his hands up, fingers splayed in frustration. He glared at Naomi, hatred simmering in his eyes, but his facade had crumbled. Marcus exhaled shakily, relief flooding him. His mother hadn't just held her ground. She'd broken theirs. Naomi kept her weapon holstered, but her hand firm on it, her stance unyielding. She wasn't celebrating yet. The real officers hadn't arrived, and until they did, the danger remained alive and thrashing in front of her. The sound of squealing tires and slamming doors finally erupted as real officers poured onto the street, their radios crackling, their guns drawn, their voices commanding. Hands up, on the ground. The imposters froze, cornered rats with nowhere left to run. Marcus's knees nearly buckled with relief. His mother's arm steadied him, even as her eyes stayed locked on the men who had nearly stolen everything. And in that moment, as the siren screamed and the neighborhood watched, Marcus realized he had never seen his mother so fierce, so unstoppable. She wasn't just his mom. She was a detective, and she was his shield. The roar of engines swallowed the street, and then the real police were everywhere. Tires screeched against the pavement, doors burst open, and uniformed officers poured out, weapons drawn, voices sharp and commanding. Red and blue lights painted the houses in rapid pulses, turning the quiet neighborhood into a theater of urgency. "Hands where we can see them!" barked the lead officer, his stance wide, his eyes locked on the two imposters. "Down on the ground, now!" The shorter man didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees, palms flat on the pavement, his chest heaving like a cornered animal. The taller one, however, wasn't ready to surrender. His fists clenched at his sides, his jaw grinding audibly as he glanced from Naomi to the approaching officers. Pride clung to him like a disease, even as the reality of his situation crashed down around him. Naomi's voice cut through the air, calm but commanding. "Detective Naomi Carter, badge number 4159. These men attempted to abduct my son while impersonating law enforcement. I've secured the scene. Proceed with caution. Suspects may be armed." Her words snapped the responding officers into sharper focus. Several glanced at her, recognizing her, the relief in their eyes clear. It wasn't every day a detective was already on site, keeping a situation contained until backup arrived. "Copy that, detective," the lead officer said quickly, motioning for his team to fan out. Two officers flanked the shorter imposter, pinning his arms as they secured him in cuffs. He didn't resist, only muttered incoherently, his eyes fixed on the asphalt beneath him. The taller one spat to the side, his face a mask of fury. "You think this is over? You think you can humiliate me like this?" "Get on the ground," one officer barked, but the man only stiffened, his chest heaving. Naomi's hand hovered near her sidearm again, her body angled protectively in front of Marcus. "Don't do it," she warned, her voice low, razor sharp. "You've already lost. Don't make this worse." For a moment, the man's entire body shook with indecision. Marcus could see it. The fight, the pride, the desperation all clashing beneath the skin. And then, finally, he dropped to his knees, his face twisted into something ugly and resentful. Officers swarmed him, forcing his arms behind his back, the metallic click of handcuffs slicing through the tension. The street erupted in murmurs, neighbors whispering in disbelief. Phones stayed trained on the scene, recording every second. Marcus's heart pounded, his breath unsteady. He couldn't look away from the sight of those men on the ground, restrained, powerless. Only minutes before, they'd had him by the arm, threatening to take him away. Now they were nothing. Naomi knelt slightly, one arm circling Marcus's shoulders. "You okay?" she whispered. Marcus swallowed hard, nodding, though his voice trembled. "I think so. I thought they were real. Mom, I thought." Naomi pulled him close, her embrace strong, steady. "That's what they wanted you to think. But you were brave. You stayed calm. And you're safe now." But Marcus knew she was saying it as much for herself as for him. Her voice carried steel, but underneath he heard the edge of fear she refused to show anyone else. She had nearly lost him today. The lead officer approached, his expression grim. "Detective Carter will transport them downtown. Impersonating an officer, attempted abduction. It's a long list." His gaze softened slightly as it shifted to Marcus. "Kid, you did the right thing staying put." Naomi nodded. "Make sure their gear is collected as evidence. I want every fake badge, every piece of their disguise cataloged." "Yes, ma'am." As the imposters were hauled to their feet, the taller one twisted his head. sneering at Marcus. "This isn't over, kid." His voice was a hiss, venomous and ugly. Naomi instantly stepped between them, her eyes blazing. "Don't you dare look at him. You'll spend the rest of your life wishing you hadn't crossed this family." The man smirked faintly, but the grip of the officers on his arms tightened, dragging him toward the waiting cruisers. The shorter imposter kept his head bowed, silent, shame clinging to him like a second skin. Marcus watched them go, his stomach churning. Even as the flashing lights reflected in his eyes, part of him couldn't shake the image of those men reaching for him, pretending to have authority, almost succeeding. When the cruisers pulled away, taking the imposters with them, the streets slowly began to exhale. Neighbors lowered their phones. Murmurs turned to shouts of support. Someone called out, "We're with you, detective." Another voice echoed, "That boy is a hero." Marcus blinked in surprise, his chest tightening at the sound. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a kid who had barely escaped something terrible. But the way his mother's hand stayed steady on his shoulder, the way she stood tall in the center of the storm, it anchored him. Naomi turned, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "Thank you all for stepping in, for recording, for not letting this go unseen. Your voices matter. Without you, they might have gotten away." The neighbors nodded, some clapping softly, others shouting words of solidarity. The community had closed ranks around them, refusing to let the lie stand. As the last cruiser disappeared around the corner, silence slowly returned. The flashing lights faded, leaving the street bathed once more in the calm of daylight. But nothing felt the same. Marcus leaned against his mother, his voice low. "What happens now?" Naomi exhaled slowly, her gaze on the empty street. "Now we make sure they never get another chance. And we make sure the world knows exactly what they tried to do." Her words were a promise, to him and to herself. Marcus nodded, clutching the memory of her strength. He had never seen her so fierce, so unshakable. And deep down, despite the fear still rattling inside him, he felt something stronger, a pride that his mother wasn't just a protector. She was a detective, and no one would ever take him without going through her first. The street felt different after the cruisers left. The flashing lights were gone, the imposters were gone, but the tension hung heavy in the air, clinging to Marcus's skin like smoke. Neighbors lingered, still shaken, still whispering, still watching the boy who had nearly been stolen and the woman who had stopped it all. Naomi didn't let go of her son's shoulder. Her palm pressed against him with quiet strength, steadying him. She walked him slowly back toward their porch, every step deliberate, as though bringing him home meant reclaiming the ground the imposters had tried to take. Marcus's legs were wobbly, but he followed, clinging to the familiar sight of their house. On the porch, Naomi turned to him, crouching slightly so her eyes met his. She brushed a hand gently against his cheek, her tough exterior softening for a moment. "Marcus," she said softly, "you're safe now. I need you to know that." Marcus swallowed hard, his throat tight. I thought they were going to take me. I thought I'd never see you again." The words cracked as they left him, and the tears he had held back finally spilled over. Naomi pulled him into her arms, holding him against her chest, her own breath shaking though she fought to steady it. "I thought so too," she whispered into his hair. "But they didn't, and they never will, not while I'm here." For several moments they stayed like that, mother and son, breathing in sync, letting the fear bleed out into the daylight. The neighbors gave them space, their murmurs fading into silence out of respect. Finally, Marcus pulled back, wiping at his face with the back of his hand. "Mom," he said quietly, "what if they try again? What if there are more of them?" Naomi cupped his face, her gaze fierce. "Then they'll learn the same lesson these two just did. You are not alone, Marcus. You have me. You have this community. And you have your own strength. You're braver than you realize." Marcus nodded, though his chest still felt heavy. "You think I was brave?" Naomi smiled faintly. "You didn't run. You didn't scream. You stood your ground until I got here. That's brave, son. That's more than brave." The neighbors slowly began to disperse. Some stop and offer a quiet word of support. An older woman from across the street reached out, touching Naomi's arm. Detective Carter, you saved that boy. You saved us all today. Thank you. Naomi gave her a tight nod. Thank you for watching, for recording. Justice only works when people are willing to see and speak. Marcus looked at the woman too, realizing something important. The neighbors hadn't just watched. They'd borne witness. They had helped protect him, in their own way, by making sure the truth was captured. When the street finally grew quiet again, Naomi guided Marcus inside. The familiar smell of their home wrapped around them. But even here, safety didn't feel as simple as it used to. Marcus sat on the couch, hugging a pillow to his chest. Naomi paced for a moment, her detective instincts still buzzing, her body refusing to fully relax. Marcus broke the silence. Mom, why me? Why would they pretend to be cops just to take me? Naomi froze, her hands on her hips, her jaw tight. Because, Marcus, there are people in this world who see you as less than you are. They think your skin makes you weaker, easier to target. They thought they could scare you, manipulate you, and disappear with you. But they were wrong. And now they'll pay for it. Marcus shivered at her words. But he also felt the weight of her convictions settle over him like armor. His mother wasn't just promising him safety. She was promising him justice. Later that evening, Naomi sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open, files already forming. She was off duty, but she couldn't help it. She was a detective through and through, and tonight it was personal. Marcus peeked in, watching her type furiously, her face lit by the glow of the screen. Mom, he said hesitantly, are you going to be okay? Naomi looked up, her expression softening. I'll be okay as long as you're okay. That's all that matters. Marcus walked over, standing beside her, his voice quieter now. I'm okay. Because of you. Her eyes welled for just a second, and she reached out, pulling him close. No, Marcus. Because of us. We faced them together. And we won. The night was still, the danger passed, but the lesson remained carved into both of them. For Marcus, it was a knowledge that the world could be cruel and deceptive, but also that he had strength he hadn't known he possessed. For Naomi, it was a reminder of why she wore the badge, why she fought, why she would never stop protecting the ones who couldn't protect themselves. Days later, when the news reports aired, the story spread beyond their block. Headlines read, "Fake officers arrested after attempted abduction." But to Marcus, it wasn't just a headline. It was his life, his fear, his mother's courage. And as the camera crews came and went, as people debated justice and safety, Marcus held on to one truth. They had picked the wrong family. Because his mother wasn't just any mother. She was a detective. And when the world tried to take him, she stood between him and the darkness and refused to let go. And in the quiet that followed, Marcus whispered to himself, "They'll never take me. Not while she's here." The words gave him peace, a mantra he carried forward, a promise that stretched into future. The story wasn't just about danger. It was about survival, resilience, and love unyielding in the face of fear. And that's what echoed long after the lights faded, long after the cruisers were gone. The love of a mother, the courage of a detective, and the unshakable truth that they had chosen the wrong family. What happened that day will never leave Marcus, his mother, or the neighbors who witnessed it. Two imposters believed they could exploit fear, but they underestimated the strength of love, the sharpness of truth, and the fire of justice. Naomi Carter wasn't just protecting her son. She was reminding the world that no matter how darkness disguises itself, light will always find it. And as long as mothers like her stand guard, the fight is never one-sided. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes, or if it reminded you the power of standing up for what's right, don't let it end here. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button to support stories that matter, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because together we keep these stories alive, and together we shine a light where others would rather see shadows.